U.S. government has
Yeah.
cut off potentially the last semblance of support from Intel and Qualcomm to Huawei.
Yeah.
Dan, why don't you kick this one off?
Yeah, I mean, look, there were some licenses that were granted. A lot of people still wonder how that actually happened in the first place, but they were. And then, Qualcomm and Intel were able to sell to Huawei. Now, of course, Huawei's had a lot of change. They spun off the Honor brand. They're building their new Harmony OS. You saw the Apple numbers, which again, there's debate. If you're an Apple fan, last quarter, Apple did way better than the China setup had been. If you're harder on Apple, you're saying that the world is falling and China is ending. Tim Cook's flying over there, but the net of it is that there's some long tail stuff that impacts Qualcomm on the 4G side. If they can't sell these any longer, there could be an opportunity for MediaTek. Intel, of course, impacted by Huawei, and this is another microaggression as I see it. This isn't on the end of the scale of selling the advanced AI stuff. So all the kind of the walls that are going up between us and China has to do with leading the arms race globally to be the most advanced and most capable in delivering these AI. This to me is odd. It doesn't actually fit within that. It fits more within these kind of consistent, we're going to jab at you, you're going to jab back at us, and it's going to create pain for your companies. We're going to try to create a little pain for your, back and forth, Pat. Stacey, I'd love to hear your take on it, but that's my feeling of what's happening here.
To be fair, these licenses apparently were up for renewal in Q3 anyways, and I don't think that I think it was going to go. I don't think any of these companies was expecting a renewal. Qualcomm had already said that Huawei was going to be out of the model by the end of the calendar year.
Yeah.
And that was two issues. One of them could have been the license. The other is, part of the reason that Qualcomm's revenues are already falling off, Huawei's doing their own internally manufactured 5G chips now at SMIC. The 4G portfolio is transitioning to 5G, so it's going away anyways. But I think it was. I don't know that it's necessarily. I mean, it's petty to do it one quarter early, but I think it was going to happen anyways. We sized this for both companies. It's not that big. Qualcomm had already said it was going away. You can do the math. They're only selling low-end 4G to Huawei. Now, all the high-end stuff all the way to transition to 5G. Our math suggests it was probably a few $100 million, maybe 15 cents in EPS. And this is in the context of a company that at least street consensus has doing $11 plus in earnings next year. Like, it's not that big. Huawei also pays licensing. The Huawei licensing agreement with Qualcomm, and for those of you that don't know, Qualcomm has a chip business and a licensing business. Yep. The Huawei licensing agreement expires early next fiscal year, and so they're actually actively engaged in renegotiations right now. If Huawei stops paying licensing, it's another 10 cents. For Qualcomm, it's not that material. For Intel, similar kind of magnitude. The problem is Intel's not doing $11 next year. The street has Intel doing $2, right? It's probably, I'd size the potential impact to Intel. Huawei does 5 million PCs a year, give or take. Make some ASP assumptions. It's $500 million to $1 billion, maybe 10 cents in EPS. Intel, by the way, the day after pre-announced, they actually lowered their guidance for the quarter. What they said is the old guidance, I think, was 12.5 to 13.5 billion. So the midpoint's 13 billion. They said we're going to come in below the midpoint. So it's kind of consistent. Figure they knocked the number down by a couple of $100 million in the quarter. Kind of consistent with our annual. We said 500 million to $1 billion for the year. That feels about right. Qualcomm also came out. What Qualcomm actually held their guidance for the quarter. They said we're aware of it. We're not changing our guidance. So it all kind of hangs together. It's not that big of a deal from a number standpoint for either. The issue that Intel had is just it's one more thing on the pile.
Yeah, a whole lot of nothing here. What I've just to close this one out, I found it interesting that Xeon wasn't part of the conversation here because Huawei has a very sizable infrastructure business where they ship a lot of these into Chinese carriers, Middle Eastern carriers, Southeast Asia.
That may have already been shut down by the way. I don't know that they're selling that stuff anymore. Most of the other guys that were selling infrastructure chips to, like for example, like Xilinx or Altera, Intel owns Altera, AMD is that got shut down several years ago.